You know, when I spoke on Sunday in Nyahururu, and by the way, I meant it. That I like the young people stepping forward. You know, for a long time we didn't have young people in the public space, in the political space. You know, so I was very happy that you guys step forward to make your ideas known. And I like the fact that you are peaceful, and I like the fact that you are tribeless. And I said it, and I said I love to engage these young people who many of you qualify to be my sons and daughters. So, and I made a proposal that we're going to have a multi-sectoral youth-led group, so that we pick people from different spaces, civil society, wherever. Now, you guys seem to have a different idea. And I don't mind. That is the beauty of, you know, I needed to make, you know, a proposal. Then you interrogate it, you turn it upside down, you reject it, or just the same way you rejected the finance bill, and then we agree how to go forward. So, I am getting feedback from the proposal I made, and the strongest feedback that I'm getting is that maybe we should do this differently. Yeah, and I'm open. You know, if you want us to do it differently, if you think I should get one of you to host, you know, a session with the young people, mimi niko tayari.
Where is the disconnect? Because during your campaigns, the millennials as well, there's a group of young people as well, you associated with them very closely. In fact, your agenda, you sold the agenda to the young people, which ultimately got you into power. So the fundamental question here is, where is the disconnect?
I think there isn't. I think there is a communication problem, which I have admitted. There is a real communication problem between what I am doing, what we agreed, what I am doing, and what you people are seeing. You know, I was very categorical, and I mean it, by the way, because it is something that I believe we must solve. Youth unemployment, many young people in different spaces, out of school, out of college, you know, including my own children. You know, they speak to me, and they have no opportunities to work, to monetize their talent, to do whatever it is that they want to do. And by the way, I have gone out of my way. I have called the leadership of TikTok. They were here. I am the one who persuaded TikTok to get Kenya to monetize the contents of TikTok. True or not true? That's the case. Because I believe there are young people who are in other spaces, who are not traditional employment spaces, but are interested in monetizing their talent. I have been deliberate about what are we doing to get young people elected. I was pleasantly surprised that even the media personalities that were interviewing me agree that housing is actually giving young people jobs, which is the truth. That our digital platform, which we are now building, we have close to 100,000 young people today who are monetizing their digital talents, their digital working spaces in Tibet, in many other areas. And my plan was to expand that to every place in rural areas. I also, we agreed on how do we create more opportunities for young people to work through manufacturing, through industrialization, in the spaces of export of labor. We've just finished actually an agreement with Germany on how we are going to get more young people to be employed in Germany. They need 250,000 people every year to work in their country. So These are the things that resonated with the young people during the campaign. They are the things that I am doing, and I can demonstrate with numbers what I am doing in that space to get more young people on board. Whether it is in the housing plan, which I spoke robustly about, it is in my manifesto. Whether it is the export of labor, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is, you will all find it in my speeches across Kenya. And I am faithful in addressing them. There is a disconnect, which I must admit. There is a disconnect between what I am doing and what the young people feel. And that is why I want us to have this engagement. I want to listen to them. I want them to tell me, Mr. President, you are doing housing, but you're not doing it properly. Change here, adjust here. You are doing export of labor, you're not doing it properly. You have helped us with TikTok, we are not yet there. So that I need to understand, because in my very honest opinion, I thought I was implementing the plan that we had together. Let me also tell you that, I am trying to deal with a problem that is 50 years old. There has never been, guys, a deliberate government program on how to create jobs. Deliberately. We kept on saying we will grow the economy, then the economy will create jobs. This time around, I said, let's put an investment in housing, because I know how many jobs, and I can count how many people are working. Let us put money in the digital space. Let's put money here. That's what I'm doing, deliberately. This time around, differently from what has happened in the past. But you see, it's just a year and a half, I cannot solve a 4.5 million young people unemployment problem in 1.5 years. Maybe I will do 100,000 this year. I'm trying to scale it up to 300,000, push it, and see how we can do this.
The question he asked, and I feel as if it's a question that, from where we were listening to what you were saying, you did actually say there's a problem with communication, and we agree with you there. The question is, what is the timeline? How do you expect, in essence, what's the plan to speak to these young people?
In the next 1 week, we must have this conversation.
Where?
In the space where you want.
So are you telling the youths right now? Tell you where they want you to speak to
them,
and you will be there.
I am sending you guys. Go tell me who amongst you is going to set up,
So if we set it up by the end of this week, say Tuesday, will you be there?
Yeah.
Will you be there?
Say end of this week, maybe yes. Thursday, Friday?
Yes.
Why not? I'll be there.
And the biggest question here is that this force, the Gen Z movement, we are leaderless. There is nobody like the face of it. So I'm just asking that, how do you plan to deal with this? Because we've seen some people coming out that they are the leaders, but they've been labeled imposters. So I don't know if already you've identified how you're gonna identify those who are going to represent the youth in that conversation.
You're the one who is telling me you are leaderless. It's not me. I'm not the one saying.
Do you know? Have you identified?
I have. It is not in my place to identify the leaders for you guys. You guys should sit down. Either identify your leaders, who will then engage with me, or if you do not want to identify your leaders, tell me how else you want us to talk. I am open. When I suggested the multi-sectoral thing and the multi-sectoral setup, I thought you were going to say, okay, we're going to organize ourselves. This is how we are going to participate. And by the way, the whole of that setup, I wanted to be about young people. Civil society, young people from civil society. Religious organizations, let us get young people from religious organizations. Professional bodies, let's get leaders from professional bodies who are young people. I am not saying that religious leaders must be the traditional religious leaders. We have very many young people in churches. They should be able to step forward and come and engage with me on how to take this forward. If you guys are saying You do not want the traditional way things have been done. You want it to be youth-led. You want it to be youth-owned. You want it to be, I am open. If you, I put out a suggestion, you guys tell me, and you know, then it becomes very, very difficult if I don't know who to deal with. You know, at least you know I am here. But I don't know who now. Is it Ms. Kidinji here? Is it Panjuguna here, or who? Who do I deal with? So
now,
this
Mr.
is.
President, basing on the recent protests, yeah?
So whether it is Thursday, Friday, Muki Pangana, mimi niko.
So you've given us those 2 days.
Yes.
Haya, sawa.
Okay. So, Mr. President, basing on the recent protest, and especially after you publicly announced that you're not going to be signing the proposed financial bill, there was increase of the chance of Ruto must go, calling for your resignation. Are you aware of this public sentiment? And if so, how do you plan to address that specific grievance by the Gen Z specifically?
You know, people are entitled to say whatever they want to say, you know. This was about the finance bill, you know. And we are a democracy. You know, we are not a mob. We are a people. You know, we are a democracy. There is how to engage. There is how, if you want to remove the president of Kenya from office, there is how you do it. You know, either you wait for an election or you do whatever the constitution provides for. And I have no issue with anybody doing whatever it is that they want to do. But ultimately, we must solve the problem. The problem cannot be a person. Debt is not a person. Unemployment is not a person. All the challenges we have as a country cannot be sorted out. Let us not be simplistic to say, if you remove this person, the problems will end. I don't think that is where we want to go. We want to be honest with ourselves. How do we solve the problem? Let us not run away from the problems we have as a nation by rounding it up and saying, if we lynched this man and got rid of him, all our problems will end. They will not. You know, we have seen countries that have done that. The countries have never become the same. So I think we just need to be rational. We need to be, you know, to step back and say, okay, how do we solve the problems that affect our country?
Mr. President, you've mentioned that earlier on it was about the finance bill. Why do you feel these young people, even after you withdrawing and decided that you're not going to be signing this proposed bill, why do you feel they felt the need to call for your resignation?
Maybe you should tell me, because you are among the young people. Maybe you should tell me. So what was this about?
I think the issue that many people are having, especially the Gen Zs, is the issue of, besides now the approach of your administration on taxes, is the whole issue of poor governance. And as much as yes, you're calling for a conversation with the young people, these young people, we the young people, want to see your government act on some of the things that you really have promised us. So besides the conversation that you have openly declared you're ready and willing to have with the Gen Zs, what are some of the actionable things that you will be doing as the head of the administration to convince these young people that you have our interest at heart?
In matters like, I have a whole program about how I intend to deal with the challenges that affect young people. Let's put that aside. And nobody seems to have a quarrel with that. What the issues are is matters to do with governance, rule of law issues. Are we living within our means? That's the question. Are we living large? Are we spending more than we should be spending? Do we need the office? Do we need certain offices? And I have agreed with you that certain offices will go, as part of building the new reality. Certain offices will go. Certain actions I must do, and that's why I was saying here, I am interrogating what it is that I can do to make sure that we live within the reality that now we are in.
I think another issue that we have, or the Gen Zs have, is a section of members of your cabinet, or leaders who are in government. They are flaunting their opulence. I think that's one area really that has angered people, especially on social media. As the head of the government in state, how do you intend to maneuver this whole scenario? And even before you respond to that, what's your general overview? What's your perception to some of these leaders flaunting their wealth and money and how expensive they're living?
I have seen it, and it is a societal problem. Believe you me, all these MPs, they are elected by us, the people of Kenya. And there is, you all admit, there is a lot of money spent in electing people. That's the real challenge that we have. So people are not elected largely on account of what it is that they will do. People are elected because they are well-resourced, And unfortunately, this is the product we end up with, This is the product we end up with. So this is something we must interrogate together. We must all agree, because we get the leaders we elect, right? So these are the people. I did not elect all these members of parliament or the other people. Maybe the ones I have appointed, those ones I can take account, and deal with. And we should, because even in my own eyes, it is not right. People, flaunting money, people using the space in pulpits to, prosecute politics. And all that is fine. And that is why I'm very happy with this moment, that we are all of us going to face up to this reality and call ourselves to order and do that which we must do. And the conversation that was around here, I met some of the church leaders, I met even my own PG, and even them, they were saying, yes, let us abolish Harambes. Yes, let's do something about our situation. We must live within our means. So it is a very healthy conversation, and I am all in.
And Mr. President, speaking of Harambes, despite the commitment to kind of halt on that and stop it, and despite the commitment to call it off, Mr. President, we also have seen you being part of the Harambes once in a while. And I mean, the conversation as it has been spiraling, it has also been questioning, why does the president have to attend every Sunday service in whatever county? Why does the president always have to be in a church service every Sunday? And by this, you also tag along the legislators who end up being very political on pulpits. Is this something that you also tend to put a cap on, including you yourself going downwards?
Moses, I am a Christian. I cannot stop going to church, and I am very clear in my mind. And whenever I go to church, you cannot accuse me of doing politics in church. I rarely speak matters politics in church, because my upbringing was such that church is a different place. It's a place where we worship God and we do the things that we do in church. As for going to church, I must tell you that I cannot stop going to church. I will go to church. Maybe the thing we need to do is, and whenever I go to church, like for example, today I was in Transmara, and I went to a local church, and the governor of that area came, and the former governor. The MP did not come. I think because they didn't know. Because I just decided to drive to church, just like normal. It was not a fundraising. It was not, a big congregation. It was just a normal church service. Many times I go to church here at Melimani AIC. Many times, and sometimes it's not even recorded. Many times I go to NPC Karen, and even many times there are no cameras. I go to church every Sunday, and more than being recorded, I go to more Sundays that have no even record of media than those who have a record of media. Of course, I also go to Sunday services like the one I was in Nyahururu, when I'm invited, say the inauguration of a bishop. It's a big event. When I'm invited, I go. And it's not a fundraising, it's just a church event. And as a Christian, if you are invited, you attend. But I agree with you, there is some conversation going forward, whether how we do it so that it remains a religious issue and not politics.
So, Mr. President, there are a couple of demands that were made last week from the movement that has brought this conversation to the fore.
Yes.
There were 14 demands. Of those 14 demands, you've at least addressed some of them, including the CAS positions, the positions of the first and second lady. You've already talked about that. We've also talked about Linda Mama in your previous interview. But then there's a question around scrapping the housing levy. There was also a demand of the 14 demands. There was also recalling all MPs. There was a question of JSS teachers. There was also a question of the intern doctors and the salaries of MPs, among others. Of these issues, what can you tell the young Kenyans tonight that of these issues, which ones do you feel can be solved before this conversation even goes further? The issue of GSS teachers, you've already said that it's impossible having reduced the amount
because,
of
I don't need to be pushed about the JSS teachers. It was my initiative, because these are very decent Kenyans who've really gone out of their way. For 2 years, they've been interns. They've been earning a very small stipend. It was their time now to be hired on permanent and pensionable. And I had made the budgetary provisions for it. I had made the budgetary provisions for the intern doctors. I had enhanced the whole space around what they were going to do. Unfortunately, I have a new situation which I have to think about.
With the money being scrapped from
Yes, with the money being scrapped from
there be a possibility of those teachers still getting the opportunity to be hired.
And now tell me, because if you give somebody a letter of permanent and pensionable, you must have the money to pay them at the end of the month. The money to pay them at the end of the month has been scrapped. So it has to be, I have to begin to figure out, so what do I do with these intern teachers? At the moment, I can't tell you straight that within a month or 2 months or 3 months, I will have figured out what to do with them. But they are part of my headache now going forward. What do I do with them?
Now, the question of IEBC, it's a big question. At the moment, the country has no IEBC. Members are calling for the recall of members of parliament. Kenyans are calling for the recall of members of parliament. Where are we in the state of IEBC?
On the status of IEBC, I think I received the final report from Parliament 2 days ago. And within the next 10 days, I will make a decision and we will proceed and appoint a new IEBC.
All right. I think part of the root cause of the nationwide protest is because when you came into office, since coming into office, the whole idea and the narrative of bottom-up economic agenda seems to be a bit fading away. How are you addressing this issue, especially on empowering these people at the bottom and the majority and the Gen Zs and the millennials, coming at a time now, the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024 has happened, which you had touted to create more jobs, to improve the economy. Now that it's no longer there, you as the president and as a father, like you mentioned, you're a father to a majority of us, to all of us. What is your message to these Gen Zs as a father, that you still have their interest at heart, especially on empowering their lives and livelihoods?
Luckily, we still have other programs that will run. The housing program will run, and he mentioned to me that there are those who are saying we scrap the housing levy. Scrapping the housing levy means we get 160,000 young people out of work. It also means we get those who are working in cement factories, in steel factories, in quarries that supply stones, in many other areas out of work. I don't think we want to do that. I don't think it is responsible for us to do that. I mean, they deserve, an income the same way. We would actually be doing the wrong thing. We'd actually be going backwards. I think we should, instead of saying, how do we scrap the housing levy, we should be saying, how do we do more with what the housing levy is doing? How do we expand it to reach out to 300,000, 400,000, 500,000? Because that's my plan. My plan ultimately is that this housing program should be able to hire 500,000 young Kenyans every time. And I'm talking about Kenyans at different categories: engineers, architects, plumbers, the people who go to our TVET institutions, all the way to accountants in cement factories, the hardware people, and it's a whole industry. The people who manufacture doors, the people who manufacture windows, it's a whole ecosystem that I hope young people appreciate, that this plan, this housing program is actually achieving a lot. And this is not an invention of Kenya. This is how modern countries have achieved unemployment. This is how modern countries have taken their development to the next level. I had an engagement here with the president of Singapore. Singapore was at the same level as Kenya at independence. Today, they are in the first world. We are struggling because they made those decisions early. Today, 90%, 96% of Singaporeans are homeowners. Today, we have 7 million Kenyans living in slums, and many who do not have decent livelihoods because we didn't make the decisions they made. These are some of the very difficult decisions I've had to make. Many people are beating me about the housing levy, but it is what Singapore did to be able to get where they are. We keep talking, we were together with Singapore, they've gone ahead, they have homeowners, but we don't want to do what Singapore did to get where we want to go. We should be like Singapore. How are you going to be Singapore if you cannot make decisions that took them to where they are? You do not want to make those decisions. We just have to make the right decisions and take the country forward. And I am very proud of the decisions I have made so far. Difficult, not very popular, but I'm telling you, that's how this country is going to change.
Yes, and Mr. President, about you've mentioned a lot about the housing program, and through that is what possibly the majority of the youth, they hear a lot about. I heard about you mentioning about increasing the number of jobs to 160,000, and I also heard that you are aiming to push that number to 300,000.
Correct.
So the only question that will come out of that is, are there any other job opportunities that the youth can get aside from the housing program?
Absolutely.
Yes, asked about that because I hear about carpenters, accountants, and all that, because we have so many youths who probably would not want to work in those spaces. And Another thing, I've seen that when you got into office, the major thing that you talked about, adding to his point, that you wanted to help the people who are down go up. And then, which means, of course, in economy is that you're going to broaden the tax base. But the process, me running a business here in Kenya and I have another branch in Uganda, I feel like it's much easier me running my company in Uganda rather than Kenya. Why? Because the amount of taxes we are paying here, they are way more. And like in other markets, we can be able to make more income. And like here, for example, look at the digital space. Right now, we are paying VAT on every advertising we are putting on social media. Like right now, for example, I spend up to 150,000 a month on advertising. I still need to pay VAT for that. But when you compare when I'm doing it in different countries, it's not there. So I'm really kind of confused in terms of how will you help the small businesses to be able to sustain themselves, because it's getting really, really tough for us. So for us, of course, as a company, we decided let's expand our business. So in like 6 countries right now. But that's how you're going to help the small businesses, and also how you're going to help the youth to get more jobs in different sectors rather than the housing program, because it feels like it's just for guys who have technical skills. So what about that? Yeah.
Very good question. I have told you we have 4 programs. One of them is housing. The other one is a digital job space. The digital job space is wide. You have accountants there. You have creatives in that space. You have many other people working in that space. I will give you an example. In Ruto, you heard me talk about Ruto. I was there 2 months ago with a company called CCI from America. They are looking for people to work in the digital space. They've hired 5,000 young Kenyans of different skills, with different skills, not necessarily technical. Sometimes it's just people who are out of school with a simple certificate, or sometimes with a diploma, with speaking good English. And they are now working for different companies in the US from Ruto. It is the reason why, if you read our manifesto, we have what we are calling the digital superhighway. It is the reason why I was saying we have changed the CDF Act so that we establish ICT hubs in every ward in Kenya, so that we take it down to the bottom, as was my commitment. Take it down to the bottom, so that at every ward, a young person can walk from home to an ICT hub with internet, with electricity, with connectivity, with a person to teach them simple digital skills, and with an elaborate program on digital jobs, where they can do tasks, different tasks in the digital space. And already, if you go to many of our TVETs, we already have installed ICT hubs. In fact, in Kilgoris today, I promised them that we are going to, there is a small technical training facility in Lolgorian. I promised them that we will give them 100 computers, so that we begin to try to begin to train the young people of that locality, so that we bring more young people with different skills onto that space, whether it is advertising, whether it is all the other jobs that people can do online. Yeah. My commitment is that we will not only have internet connectivity, we will also have training facility, and we will also make sure that you have requisite technology devices to make sure that these young people can monetize their talent. After a while, they can buy their own computer and begin to do it from home. So that is the other program that we have. And on that program, if you visit some of the TVETs today that are operating in our technical training colleges, if you visit some of the TVETs like the one I've told you, some of the ICT hubs like the one I was telling you in Ruto, and in fact, CCI, just so that I don't forget, CCI have agreed with us that they will expand the 5,000 jobs to 100,000 jobs in 1 year if we do certain incentives for them. And I have already asked our KRA to look at some of the incentives so that we can give them the opportunity to expand that scope to 100,000 jobs. And that's just one company. If we get 20 companies to do that, then we are moving to the next level. That is item number 2. Program number 3 is export of labor, right? We have 19 bilateral labor agreements with different countries globally. We are negotiating one with the US, we have completed one with Germany, we have completed with UAE, we have completed with Saudi Arabia. We are working with 19 different countries, including the US, Canada, and many other countries, so that young people can now choose, from a buffet of whether either you are a nurse, you are a mechanic, you are an engineer, you are whatever trade, you can go and work in those countries. And I was giving an example of what is happening in my village, where I come from. There is a young man there who was interviewed last week, and he was saying, the president has not done well because many of the young people in this village are going abroad because they cannot find jobs locally. Not knowing that going abroad was part of my plan, because I believe we should be able to export between 10 and 20,000 young Kenyans every month to go abroad, work abroad, send their money back at home, and begin the process of making sure that we grow our economy using remittances from these young people. Program number 4 is what you heard me say about local manufacturing. My friend, there is absolutely no reason why we should be importing products that we can manufacture locally. Because by manufacturing locally, we use our own raw materials. If it is sanitary pads, for example, we use our own cotton that is grown in Busia, that is grown in the Rift Valley, that is grown in Makueni. We use that locally. We give business to our farmers. Number 2, our own young people work in the factories. I was talking to Mr. Sahil. Mr. Sahil has a factory in Thika. He employs currently 200 young people. He was telling me, Mr. President, if you pass this law, the one in the finance bill, and put import duty on imported sanitary pads, I will hire another 300 young people. I talked to him myself. I will hire another 300 people because I am operating now under capacity because we are getting competition from imported products. So that whole manufacturing space, if we make sure that we have the right tax policies in place, we will expand job opportunities for young people in Kenya. Let me give you another example. Last year, we said, let's put a duty on imported cement and imported furniture and imported clinker last year. Do you know what happened? 95% of clinker, we reduced imports by 95%. What did we do? We opened a new factory in Kenya. We are in the process of opening another 4 factories for cement manufacturing in Kenya because we have put a duty on imported clinker so that we can manufacture that clinker locally. We can manufacture that cement locally. If we manufacture cement locally, my good friend, 3 things happen. Number 1, we use our own local materials. We pay for those local materials. Ordinary people get paid. Number 2, we hire our own young people. They are the people who will work in those cement factories. They are the people who will be transporters. from those cement factories. And number three, we create local wealth. Our own companies locally begin to grow their balance sheet and become big companies. They can invest more. They can invest in other areas. But by importing, we are exporting our jobs. The people working in the factories will not be working in Kenya. They will be working in those countries. By importing, wealth will not be created in Kenya. It will be created in those countries. Number three, raw materials will not be the ones from Kenya. It will be raw materials from those countries. So this is, and you know, these are actions that must be deliberate. And this is what I am doing. You have asked me a question. Apart from housing, what are the other areas you are working so that we don't concentrate just on housing? So digital jobs, export of labor, manufacturing.
So, Mr. President, are you confirming here that the deal with Germany that was to be signed by the end of this month is signed and sealed?
The deal, in fact, they have asked me to. We have a big occasion in September between Kenya and Germany. They have asked that the president of Germany wants to sign it with me when we do that occasion in September. But meanwhile, the
doors are open.
The doors are open.
All right. So quickly, there has been reports that there was a lapse of intelligence in terms of the protests that we have seen over the last 2 weeks. Can you clarify the situation for us? And is the intelligence service and the police service reading from the same page? And there were calls for the head of NIS and Odin Haji to resign. Are you of the same thoughts?
I don't think that is where we need to. This is not the time for blame game. I don't think that we need to blame each other. I think let us solve the problem. You know, we have a real problem. The real problem here is that we have a youth situation that needs our attention, and I am very alive to it. And that is why when I campaigned on a platform that we're going to create opportunities for these young people. And I am at it. I am working on it.
Mr. President, we are here in this situation because of the finance bill 2024. When you look at the process of submitting views on the proposed bill, the majority of the youth were a no-show during that stage. In fact, like you mentioned earlier, you acknowledged some of the Gen Zs got it so wrong that they were talking about the issues of land, which is not contained in the bill. As the President, how can your office perhaps petition Parliament to have a change in style to accommodate this youth when it comes to submitting their memorandum of views to Parliament, maybe through TikTok? Because as it stands now, Kenyans can only be able to submit their views and submissions to Parliament through written memorandums or via email. The majority of the youth find this to be a laborious exercise. So to ease in the process, can your office, as the office of the President, perhaps make a petition to Parliament on how the youth can be involved in submitting their views?
I think it is an inflection point. You know, we have a whole new approach to things. We have new media. We have the social media space that is increasingly becoming the media where Kenyans are communicating. And I think we are all seized of maybe doing things differently, making sure that we open more avenues for citizens to be able to participate, because citizen participation is front and center of government business. And therefore, I think there will be a consideration, and we will be discussing with Parliament on how this generation of young Kenyans can bring their views on board. In the media they are friendly with, and in a manner that we carry everybody along. It is a positive suggestion.
But Mr. President, when you were elected back in 2022, you are a darling to many, but going the current reports, the finance bill 2024 has made you kind of unpopular. Does this worry you that you might not get re-elected?
You know, um, in my mind, I have to choose between being a politician and being a leader. Being a leader means you make the right decisions. I want to make a difference in Kenya. You know, Jesus, the man that has maybe 5 billion followers today in the world, including yours truly, did his work in 3 years. Everything he did in 3 years. So it is not the length of how much you serve. You know, many people tell me, Mr. President, you should be bothered about your re-election. Frankly, my re-election comes second. Doing the right thing for Kenya is my first priority.
Are you not worried at all that the ongoing protests and calls for you to resign might lead to you losing a second term?
You see, if the price to pay for me pushing the right agenda for our country, making sure that the country does not default, making sure that we create opportunities for young people to work, and making the right decisions, I'm ready to take the consequences.
Mr. President, it is unfortunate that the success of your government is in question. And you can hear from the discontentment of the younger people is your performance is also in question. And so, looking at the governance trajectory your government has taken, which has now put to question how you handle things including governance, dealing with graft, emergency response cases, including the flood situation, it is emerging that you might be sitting in a table with the wrong advisors. And is it something that you can admit to tonight, that the people who advise you are ill-informed?
It is something to think about. It will exercise my mind.
So are you saying that you might be aware of the same, but you don't want to admit it?
No, I'm just telling you, I have heard you, and it is something that I will think about going into the future.
So are we looking at a possible change in your team of advisors?
That's a possibility.
All right, Mr. President, there's a widespread belief that your government tolerates corrupt officials. And in light of this public outcry, are you willing to dismiss any government official that has, one, a criminal track record, and two, has an ongoing case, of course, has a demonstration for your commitment to clean governance, even if it means losing key allies in your administration? Is it something you're willing to do?
Ms. Kitinji, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. It is, as I said in my other interview, I am a believer in rule of law and due process. And I would not want to hurt anybody that is not guilty. But I will not hesitate to deal with people who have been proved to be corrupt. And I have done it before. When there was sufficient evidence that people in management of cereals did the wrong thing, we didn't hesitate. When there was evidence that the people who ran KNTC had criminal track records, we fired them and we prosecuted them. When there was evidence that the KEBS did not act in accordance with what was legitimate, we took action. So, as and when I have concrete evidence. I have concrete information of impropriety by any official.
We have the recent case of the fake fertilizer that I believe you addressed earlier on, which actually the CS confirmed that indeed there was some fake fertilizer as much as there was the real one. What about that?
Precisely. That's why the CEO of Cereals, the General Manager of National Cereals and Produce Board, and 7 other officers of National Cereals and Produce Board are in court. That is the kind of action I took. We didn't, equivocate. We were very clear. You have an issue, and we are in the process of working on new management for National Cereals and Produce Board. The minister himself was taken to Parliament and taken through due process. Unfortunately, Parliament did not make a determination. If Parliament had made a determination, I would have fired the minister.
You, in the previous interview, you've actually admitted that your cabinet has failed you so far. And you have said, in your own words...
I have said they could do better.
Yes, those in essence. But you've also said that you will be doing an introspection of yourself. What will this introspection entail, and what do you intend to do different going forward?
I don't think I should say more than I have said. Watch the space.
So you're just telling us to stay awake, to...
I will take action, and you will see it.
All right, let's go back a little bit to the debt. Among the demands that were issued is an audit of the national debt, and you've spoken about that in the previous interview very well.
I love that.
I would like to go back to just one thing. In essence, Kenyans have been worried about the amount of debt, and in essence, they've been asking: are your trips abroad putting us in bed with the likes of IMF and the World Bank? And are you worried about these deals, or the conditions pegged on these deals yourself as the president? And more so, can Kenya pull out from these deals?
The multilateral development banks are our biggest supporters. In fact, the World Bank and IMF and all the other multilateral banks are our partners in development. They are actually the source of the largest development financing that we have. And their money is lent to us at between 0 and 2%. The alternative we have is to go to the market here, which we are borrowing money at 14, 15%. If you are sitting where I'm sitting, you have 2 options: to go to the local market and borrow at 15%, or to speak to the World Bank and IMF and get money at 2%.
It sounds reasonable, but the question has to be, IMF itself, in the current problem we're in, had pegged some of those things in terms of the proposals in the finance bill.
You see, the ultimate decision doesn't rest with IMF. They make suggestions to us, but I take the last decision. It is me. It is Kenya. It is us as Kenyans that decide. If we agree with a certain situation, we move on. If we don't agree with a certain situation, we tell them as much.
Mr. President, final round of questions. I'll begin. My final question would be, what is that passionate message to the youth who are scheduled to mobilize again this week, Tuesday and Thursday? What is your message as the father of the nation?
My message to the young people of Kenya is 2. Number 1, I have a very clear plan to address youth issues, including unemployment. That's number 1. And I have a clear plan, and I am ready to explain to them what I am doing, where I am, what I have achieved, and what I intend to achieve. That's number 1. I have also had them on cutting down austerity measures that would trim the government expenditure, which is also a very positive thing. cutting down on offices that may not necessarily be too important, reducing on hiring staff that are not necessary, cutting down on advisors that may not necessarily be adding value to this, cutting down on foreign travel and expenditure on seminars and what, cutting down on travel expenditure by all arms of government, reducing on waste, dealing with corruption. I have heard them very clearly, and I will address myself to those issues. And I have said I want to have a session with them whenever you guys are available, Thursday, Friday, in a platform where you want me to be. I will be there so that we agree on the other issues.
Okay, two questions, Mr. President. When you took over, you promised that you would respect the autonomy of independent institutions.
Correct.
And with the current suggestions or reports, we see there is influence, the executive having influence over the parliament or legislative the government. What do you have to say about this? The very last is Mama Mboga and Boda Rider. These were your supporters and they endorsed your government. Today they feel like they have been left out and they feel this current regime is even frustrating them more than their previous ones. Is there any hope for them? Yes.
Let me start with your last question. Every Mama Mboga and every Boda today borrows money on Hustler Fund, which I made a commitment. I have 2 million of them on that platform. That's number one. Number two, every Mama Mboga and every Boda today have an opportunity to own a home because I have created a model that gives them an opportunity with 3,000 shillings a month to be a homeowner. It never existed. It was never there. If you go to Mukuru tomorrow, you will be shown a house where an ordinary Kenyan will pay 3,000 shillings and own a home on 10th floor or 6th floor or 4th floor. Number three, Mama Mboga today will also tell you, I am building 400 markets across Kenya. They are under construction as I talk to you. In fact, before the end of this year, between 100 and 150 will be ready because I made a commitment to them that Mama Mboga is doing business like everybody. And I committed to them that they will be doing their business in a place that is decent, that has water, that has electricity, that has, sanitation, that has toilets. Number four, I will also tell you that in my universal health coverage plan, which unfortunately Kidogo has been affected with a finance bill, I have changed the law to make it possible for Mama Mboga or Boda to go to hospital with a health insurance paid for by the government of Kenya if they cannot afford. And those who have been paying 500 to be reduced to pay 300 for them too to be able to access healthcare. That is my plan. So I have not dropped the ball. I am very clear on how they should be catered for in my administration. Let me come back to your respect for institutions. The Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya will tell you, I have never called her to ask her for any favors on matters to do with the judiciary. I have been very unhappy with some of their rulings, but that is the nature of democracy. On matters to do with Parliament, I have never instructed Parliament to do anything, but there is a nexus between government policy and legislation. Those members of Parliament who belong to the ruling coalition have a duty, because we made the promises together. We went together to the people. We were standing side by side. We were promising housing together. We were promising universal health coverage together. We were promising fertilizer together. We were promising coffee issues together. We were promising sugarcane issue together. So that is why we hold a PG to agree. You know, gentlemen, this is our manifesto. This is what we agreed. You know, that is, and it happens worldwide. It is not a Kenyan invention. It happens in the US, it happens in the UK. In fact, in other countries, it is much more serious than here. In other countries, you cannot vote against your party. Here, we have members who vote against the party and no action is taken against them. So that's how democracies work, because that's how it is meant to work.
But do you feel comfortable when the members of the opposition divide support your policies going against their own parties?
But the same way, members of my own party sometimes don't vote with me. So sometimes members of the other party also don't vote with their leadership. They vote across parties. So that is something that happens sometimes, but it is not the norm. It is the what happens not regularly. But the norm is that people vote with their parties.
Mr. President,
Yes, Moses.
you promised that there's this, you've opted to keep it under wraps and say we will see in time on the decisions you'll make in terms of change. But the worry that is among the young people is you might not be singing the same song with your deputy. You might not be reading from the same script. And just from the previous interview, you have sort of even gone to correct what he said about the NIS intelligence information that he said wasn't there. And you have been very categorical that information was there, and that is why you made the particular decision on deploying security officers. This has also played out in the previous public addresses, that is singing one song on probably the tribal or the politics of ethnicity, and then you come out and say that has not been the case. Mr. President, are there cracks in your leadership? And when you took office, you said that because of the treatment that you so purported to get in the Jubilee government, you will make sure that you won't accord your deputy the same. And from the way it looks, that is not what is happening, because you're not reading from the same script. What is really happening between you and Deputy President Rigathi?
Two things. Let me answer to my commitment. And I am very faithful to my commitment to make sure that my deputy is treated as it deserves the office of the deputy president. I have done three things that I never enjoyed as deputy president. Number one, I never had a budget for my office. Even for buying tea, it was controlled from the office of the president here in State House. Today, my deputy has an independent budget for his office with an independent accounting officer that doesn't report to this office. That's number one. Number two, I never chaired a single, in fact, there was no cabinet committee for 10 years. My first action when I came into office is to set up cabinet committees and appointed the deputy president to chair those cabinet committees. 8 cabinet committees chaired by the deputy president. There is no government business that is prosecuted by the cabinet that does not first start at the cabinet committee chaired by the deputy president. It was my commitment because I wanted my deputy to have clear roles, clear responsibilities, and to participate fully in government management, government programs. Number 3, I made sure that my deputy, whenever he needs transport and transport is available, he is facilitated. In fact, what I have done is that I have even repaired and made available 2 police choppers, the same size as mine, that I use from the military, for my deputy to use. And in fact, some of the time, he uses the choppers that I use. Sometimes, because these choppers are actually meant for military work, sometimes they're not available. Like yesterday, they were not available. I took a private transport to where I was going. Today, I took private transport to come back. You know, sometimes there are those incidences. So, on that first issue, I am very clear in my mind that my deputy must be treated with respect. And I have done that faithfully. On the issue of maybe the discord, that is an in-house matter. We will sit down and work it out. But again, to your point, since my deputy is not here, I don't think it is fair for us to insinuate that he has a different view from mine. I think let's leave it like that. Those are internal party issues. We will sort them out.
Okay. First of all, is to commend you for having a forum for the new media. I hope this will not just be a one-off thing, but something that will happen more frequently, because majority of Kenyans are young people and they do not watch the mainstream media. They consume a lot of the media that all of us produce. So, because even as much as we do this, I believe most of them will be like, okay, this is just like a reaction. So I hope that we'll be able to do. And so I have 2 questions, because I know there are going to be protests from the coming week or so. So I know also my friend Dennis, in the previous government, he was abducted, and even he posted on his X account a week ago. So I don't know, what is your plan or what is your message towards the youth? Because I believe most people, the Twitter activists, people on social media, they're scared for their lives, and most of them even go into hiding before the protest. So can you be able to address that in terms of, will there be no actions? In terms of the arrest, can they be using the proper legal channels rather than someone being taken away from their house at 1 a.m. and goes missing for 24 hours, creating a lot of tension in the country? Probably as an advice, I don't know if I can be able to give that, but this actually is the one that's fueling a lot of animosity and a lot of anger on the ground. Another thing, the issue of young people, younger than me, probably like 2019, and of course Gen Alpha as well, being willing to go to the streets because of whatever they're experiencing, because information spreads and it spreads really fast. going to the protests, they are peaceful, but in the process, we end up losing lives. Is this something that you can be able to address the police who are under your docket, or in general, in terms of to stop using live bullets? Because there are sad images that have traumatized many youths, and we get this information directly from our audience. Is this something that you can be able to categorically state that there'll be no live bullets that will be used during protests? Because a young man with the same name like me, Eric, was shot along Parliament Road. And it was such a sad thing to see it on TV, live on TV. So those two things, yeah, I'd like you to.
First,
I want to add something on that. We were like snipers and shoot. Yeah. Images on social media like depicted snipers shooting.
So first, let me say that this is a phase in society. We're coming to a new phase, and it requires us to adjust. Maybe as you've said, many of the young people are not watching mainstream media. They don't read newspapers. Maybe there needs to be us to think about new engagement. How do we engage these young people better in the spaces where they are, whether it is on Twitter or TikTok or the other spaces. Number two, on matters of abductions, there is no provision in the law for any abduction. And any arrest of citizens must be within the law. And that is my clear position to the Independent Police Service. However, when police arrest somebody, it must also not be immediately made to look like it's an abduction. If the police show up and they show themselves, we are policemen, we are coming because either we asked you to come to the police station, you didn't come, or we have some questions for you to answer, that should be within the parameters of the law. There is a provision for the police to come and tell you, Eric, we have come. This is us, we are the police. We want to interrogate you on this matter, on this matter, on this matter. So long as it is done within the parameters of the law, it doesn't amount to an abduction. As for the protests, I have said clearly that peaceful protesters will be protected by the police. Eric, you will not tell me that the people who burned down Parliament were peaceful protesters. They were not. You don't want to tell me that the people who burned the Chief Justice office were peaceful protesters. As you heard me say, we have thousands of citizens who have lost property, businesses worth 2.4 billion. These are innocent people doing their business. Criminals take advantage of a peaceful demonstration, pretend they are part of the peaceful demonstration, and they go and loot and steal and burn people's property. Those ones too, Eric, the police must look, they have a cardinal responsibility to protect people's property. I think they do. That's what the law provides. Many of the peaceful demonstrators, we saw them in camera, many of them suffered in the hands of criminals who came, took away their phones, took away their purses, did a lot of damage to them. These are people who we must all agree that unless we are firm on criminals who either take advantage of peaceful demonstrations to hurt the demonstrators, to steal from the demonstrators, or even go to steal from shops, destroy people's businesses, or even attack government buildings. The city hall was burned down. The office of the Chief Justice was burned down. You saw what happened in Parliament. Mayhem, doors broken, furniture broken, kitchen burned. I mean, surely, Eric, do you sincerely believe that that should be part of our demonstration? I don't think so. And that's all I'm saying. Let us keep it peaceful. And I said it from day one. I love the way the youth were going about it, peaceful. They were on TikTok. They were, a homogeneous group of young Kenyans. And I like the fact that they came to say, okay, we have an issue. And I wish I had the time to explain to them that some of the issues that they were saying were in the finance bill, they were not in the finance bill. Some of the issues that they were complaining about, they were not in the finance bill. And it is not enough for somebody to say, I don't care what is in the finance bill. I just don't want it. Do we really want to do that? I think we are a mature society enough, and we are intelligent enough to say, okay, let us unpack this finance bill. What is good in it? What is bad? Because we lost a lot of good things in the process of trying to remove bad things that some of them were not even in the finance bill. So this is the really candid conversation I want to have with young people, that if there is an issue, we are reasonable. Many of the young people have gone to school. Many of the young people are good graduates. They have, and it's not difficult for them to say, okay, let's look at what is in the finance bill. Let's look at what is in this document. Can we remove this? Can we remove this? Can we change this? This is good. This is good. This is not good. And then let's have a package that serves our country, creates opportunities for us as a country, and builds our nation, because this is the only country we have.
All right, so Mr. President, allow me to finalize my questions in matters touching on journalism, because I am a journalist. Now, there's a quote that says, free press is not a privilege, but an organic necessity in a great society. Journalists have faced police harassment and also tear gassed while reporting the protests. We have also seen mainstream media, specifically KTN, come out to say that they have been threatened by the government in their way of reporting. Mr. President, if you could let us know if you are aware of that, and also, how do you propose to uphold the freedom of journalism in their reporting, of course, in a democratic country, and what can be done to protect their freedom of reporting?
I think if we have free media, and it is not the one in Kenya, then I don't think we have any free media anywhere in the world. In Kenya, people report anything, everything, what is news, what is fake news, what is true, what is not true. I would really ask the media to act responsibly. There is no media house that I have called. There is no media person that I have called to tell them anything. We've not had a conversation with any media. I know very well the necessity of free media, and I support media wholeheartedly. I mean, media have also become victims of some of the criminals in our streets, Media have also maybe inadvertently sometimes got into situations where their cameras are broken, in the confusion, in the running around when there is, commotion. and it is unfortunate, yeah, and to your point that anybody has threatened KTN. KTN should make a formal report of who threatened them, and so that they can be dealt with in accordance with the law. Nobody should threaten any media personality for whatever reason, either on account of what they reported or on account of what they did. And if I have a complaint with a media house or a media personality, I know where to take them in terms of report them to the right agencies and have the matter sorted out within the parameters of the law.
In matters police harassment towards the journalist,
I think that's a case where the police journalists should look. If a particular policeman has harassed a journalist, police have numbers. Let us have them reported so that they can be dealt with in accordance with the law, so that nobody escapes and institutes impunity. Nobody is above the law. The president is not. The police are not. Citizens are not. Everybody must be subject to the law.
All right. Before I ask you, unverified claims that some of the police officers there have been shot, could you confirm for us that whether any Kenyan officer in Haiti has been shot? That would be necessary to.
There is no report that I have of that nature.
All right. The other question is, what has kept you up at night over the last 2 weeks?
Over the last 2 weeks, I have kept sometimes late into the night thinking about the young people of our nation. Because I am one person who did not get a job until I was elected as a member of parliament. And I know what it means not to have a job, not to have an income. And that is why I am willing to put my career on the line, to see to it that, to the extent that I can, young people have an income. That's why I have really pushed the programs that I believe will put a job on the way of many young people, will put an income in the pockets of many young people, and will make a livelihood for many young people. I have kids, and I know what they feel when they don't have a job. They talk to me as a father. And so that's one thing that keeps me awake. And unfortunately, in the current situation, we have a misunderstanding. We have a miscommunication. Partly, I am to blame. I should communicate better. You have told me that maybe my communication is not getting to the right people because maybe I'm communicating using the wrong media. Maybe to be able to reach these many young people, I should be able to get into the media where they are, so that I can communicate better to them. Maybe that way, with understanding what we are doing, understanding the reasons why we are doing what we are doing, they would, instead of opposing what we're doing, they would add value to what we are doing, support what we are doing, and benefit from what we are doing.
All right. As you're making your summary to the judges, can you just look straight into the camera?
Which camera?
Just any of those cameras there. Make your remarks to them. And as you're doing so, perhaps it's something you should think about. I know you're a busy
This
man.
place is cold.
Yes, I know. This place is very cold. As you're thinking about what to do next, perhaps a Twitter space a month might sound a lot, but if you do consider
A Twitter
space a month might sound like a lot, but once a month, perhaps you might be able to reach more.
Maybe once in a month, once in 2 months. I don't mind.
Yes.
Yeah. So these young people, the young people of our nation, my very good sons and daughters, let me tell you that I value what you do. I have heard what you have said. I have seen what you have done. And you have made recommendations. Some I will outright implement, on cutting down on government budgets and cutting down on offices that we can. I will deal with some of the issues that you have raised. You have given me some difficult choices. I will suggest to you how we can together go about the difficult choices that you have put on the table on some of the issues. But I want to promise you that in the engagement that we're going to have, God willing, in the next couple of days, I think we've agreed with some of your colleagues here that maybe Thursday, Friday, I will be thoroughly clear, and I want you to be equally clear on what you think, the suggestions you have on how to take our country forward. My request to you is that we have a country to keep. It's the only home we have. We must do whatever it is that we do within the parameters of the law, respecting one another and talking to each other with respect so that we can move forward together as a country. I am looking forward to this engagement in the space that you will recommend. I'm told X is the space that you want us to engage. And I have committed that I will find myself into that space. I will ask one of you guys in that space to host us so that we can have this conversation as I do what I must do to get the country moving forward. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you so much for having us, Mr.
Thank you
President.
so much, Mr. President.